Thank you very much for letting me to interview you and talk to you a little bit about your project, American Village, which is, I believe, is around Moscow, or pretty much close to Moscow, approximately close to Moscow, right? And I'm sure my viewers and my subscribers will be very much interested to learn, why did you decide to create this project? What did make you to move to Russia? Why did you make this move? And what do you like about Russia? We can start, one by one.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
thanks for having me on the program. When it comes to the American Village, it is when this website launches, it'll have more than one location, but at least one location will be around Moscow, because that's obviously where I'm already at. So it's close to my heart, and it's bureaucratically easier to deal with, because a lot of this has to do with making the deal to allow a particular region's government to get people through the immigration quota. So the whole point of this is because you essentially really, if you're a Western foreigner and you don't get married to a Russian citizen, your chances of immigrating to Russia are very slim, or they require these very complex legal setups of sort of like creating a business to hire yourself and all that. I was actually part of a discussion on that yesterday, but it gets into such deep legal weeds that it's kind of hard to even repeat. But as it stands, generally, for people who have normal means and normal abilities, unless they're married to a Russian citizen, they can't move here. And so the American Village is kind of a way to get around that. It's a loophole in a way to start a life in Russia and get through that. So that's that. Yeah.
So do you mean you don't have to be married to a Russian citizen to be part of American Village?
No, and in fact, it's the opposite. It's probably the only way you're going to be able to, as a husband and wife who already have kids, move to Russia.
Like American family, you mean?
Yes,
like
as in two
American
foreign people.
family?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
two foreign people who are married to each other. They already have kids. And is one way to essentially, because you're going to have to buy a place to live at some point anyways, so you might as well buy a house here. And to immigrate, you need to have some sort of place of residence. You have to have a permanent address established. The Russian or Soviet term for that is registration. And so you're going to need to do that anyways. So it sort of kills a few birds with one stone.
So are you saying that if American citizens come to Russia to have a permanent residence here, or potentially citizenship in the future, basically do they have still to go through the Russian language exam to obtain Russian citizenship, or there is some kind of loophole that they don't have?
They do, and pretty much everyone does. The only one way to get around that, I think, is the one where you're doing it through investment, but that's requires millions upon millions of rubles, and again, is really only applicable to the ultra rich. But at the same time, even for the ultra rich, first thing, the test is insanely easy, and if you can't pass a test that's that easy, you shouldn't be here.
All right. So basically, from your experience, the test is not super difficult. It's probably
not just mine. Everyone who takes it says the same thing. It's ridiculously easy. It is because Russians have this. Sorry, almost said something very not appropriate there. Hold on. I need to calm myself down because I get angry about these sort of things. They have this belief that their language is the hardest language to learn on earth. Okay. Now, thankfully, although this belief is stupid, and it's something I constantly have to deal with, especially and break down, especially during interviews about my various media projects when I talk in Russian. I've had to talk about this a lot over the years. But the positive side to it is that since all Russians believe their language is impossible to learn, that means they made the test stupidly easy to compensate.
Well, that's definitely good news.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, something positive out of this pride of thinking that Russian language is extremely difficult.
Well, yeah, just for the foreign people, just wait till you get here. You'll hear it over and over and over again. And I'll tell you now, so here's your answer to that. The actual secret server, the government services, your State Department and CIA and all that, they actually broke down the difficulty of learning languages. And of course, the people here, again, it's so hard to not use really colorful language, as they say, towards these people, is that it really depends what your mother tongue is in terms of what are the languages are difficult. So for English speakers, Russian is in class 4 out of 5. Class 5 are the most difficult languages on earth for English speakers, and that is Chinese, Arabic, I believe Japanese and Korean, and I think a few others that are more obscure. So there you go. There's the proof is in the pudding.
Which makes total sense. I totally believe you that Asian language is probably really the most difficult for English speaking people to learn versus Russian. Yeah. So let's start kind of little bit, or let's get back a little bit and tell me a little bit about how did you make it to Russia? Why Russia? Like, are you have any Russian roots? Do you have any Russian parents? Maybe you were born in Russia. How did it happen that the American guy team is living in Russia?
Well, to be honest, I've had to answer that question a lot. So unfortunately, you're going to get a real boiled down version here. I actually wrote an entire book on it. It's called Почему Россия. You can find it online in Russian only. I never translated it and don't plan on. I need
to get a link to the book so I can put it under my
sure, but you can only read it in Russian. And only
Russian people can read it, yes. Russian subs can read it, definitely.
But essentially, long story short, at the time of the Russian Revolution, all my ancestors came from within the borders of the Russian Empire, and so there you go. I didn't really fit in America on either side of the line, and so I wanted to just sort of give a try and see if maybe I could fit in somewhere else and make a life somewhere else. And things took off and they went pretty well. So there you go.
So you're about like what, third generation of Russians? If they moved there after the
depending on how you look at it.
Third or fourth generation. And where in the United States did you live?
Cleveland, Ohio.
All right. So, but you learned Russian during your childhood, maybe from
No, I never heard a word of it.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. All right. So you did not.
Neither Russian nor Polish. My one grandmother spoke Polish fluently. The other spoke a word I can never remember in Russian. I think it's surzhyk, the kind of where it's both Ukrainian and Russian at the same time. That's what the other grandmother spoke, but they never spoke to me a word. That's why I have a very thick accent.
Yeah, it's difficult to even believe that you have Russian roots. That's why I asked, because you sound very American. You have like very American English.
Well, the thing is you have to remember, I look like everyone in Eastern Europe. So that's why I like living here. It's nice to fit in.
All right. So the next question, then, Novin, then you do have some Russian roots, or you do have Russian roots and Polish, let's say Eastern European roots. But you still lived in America. You did not know language, and you grew up basically like a normal teenager, or normal young man in United States, right? Like with American culture.
One factor is I'm from the ghetto. I'm from African America, so my childhood was different in that sense.
So basically, you would say it was difficult childhood. No, or is it just
my family was pretty darn good. In fact, they are really good. So that side of stuff was good, but the environment wasn't the most positive, no.
Right.
But it makes a man out of you.
Okay, then the next question is, when did you decide to move to Russia? How long you've been in Russia since you left United States?
I visited my family in Poland when I was 16, and I really liked it. And I went back to America, went to college, and near the end of college, I could kind of see that my life was sort of now on the trajectory of I think something that happens to a lot of people when they're in their mid-20s, is they sort of find out, well, now I'm going to be working, my degree's in design. So it's like, wow, I kind of have a design job then working from home, and I'm going to have no human interaction, and I'm getting paid $10 an hour. And this is, I guess, where my life ends. That's kind of the end of the road. And so near the end of college, one of our teachers mentioned the Peace Corps. And so I applied for that and I got approved and I served in the Peace Corps for 2 years in Kazakhstan. And that's where I learned how to speak Russian. And when I came back to America after that, I kind of realized that I had nostalgia glasses on. My friends kind of all grew up and changed and people started to spread out. And so I kind of realized that you can't go back to being a teenager again. And it's time to grow up. And so I moved to Moscow.
So which year was that?
I moved to Moscow at the very end of 2006. I served in the Peace Corps from 2004 to the beginning of 2006. So I was in America between this Kazakhstan-Russia gap for like less than a year.
So it's been a while then. You probably you can consider yourself, or everybody else can consider yourself, like native Russian by now, because you've been like
No, I can never. And trust me, that's you'll never be allowed to do that. You can be Russian hyphen American. You'll never be Russian if you speak with an accent ever.
So and you still have an accent even after
everyone will always still have an accent if they start learning a foreign language for the first time as an adult.
That's correct. Like for example, I have been studying English after since like 33 years old. So and my daughter, she was 8 years old. She has absolutely zero accent.
Yeah.
In fact, she has like very strong like American English pronunciation, and I have pretty strong Russian accent. And we have been in America at the same time, right? But since she was young child and I was adult when we started to learn English, she absolutely adjusted and she saved her Russian, so she has perfect native Russian, and her English level is a native English. You never will recognize that she's not native speaker.
Same thing with my kids. So
your kids the same way. So they were your kids were born in Russia then?
Yeah, but they spent enough time in America before things got bad politically that they were able to have native English as well. So they don't have accents when they speak.
Oh, that's super cool. That's super cool. Yeah. So are they in Russia now, or they stay there in the
States? They're in Russia, yeah.
They're in Russia. And can I ask just like approximately age frame, maybe you can say 20s or...
No, 13 and 10.
Also teenager age. Yeah. And they go into Russian school?
Yeah, the usual free school. Unfortunately, I don't make as much money as I think a lot of people think I do. So sadly, no private academies, public school.
So what do you think? The public schools in Russia, are they better? Like we'll talk like in general or in average. We cannot, of course, I know there's super cool schools and like depends from the area you live in. So the same in the States. You can live in a nice neighborhood and go to nice public school, and then you can live in ghetto and go to really bad school.
Well, the thing is about Russia that a lot of Americans have to, it's very hard for them to adapt to. There's no bad neighborhood in Russia. Okay, that just doesn't exist. So there is no thing of like this school's a bad school in the ghetto or whatever. You could have a school that's maybe bad because it's in a very isolated place and the teachers are just sort of whoever's there. You know, it's like someplace population 300, who's the math teacher? The only person around who kind of knows math, kind of. So I guess you can't say they're all universally the same, but when you're talking about places that have a population of maybe over 2,000 or 3,000 people, they're kind of all similar. I would say that Russian schools are definitely better than any of the school experiences I've seen. Definitely, well, my kids got to experience both schooling systems, and the Russian system is definitely better, but that doesn't make it good. If that makes sense, like. I wouldn't say that the Russian system is amazing or great. I just say that they actually do push the kids a bit harder to learn. And there's no gay stuff. There's none of the ridiculous gay crap. Basically, if they are propagandizing, well, everyone gets indoctrinated into some belief system. So whatever they're not indoctrinating the kids into in school, I agree with. So I don't see a problem with it. There you go.
I agree. And I agree with you because a lot of Russians, they do have opinion that modern Russian schools, they even say not as great as old Soviet Union schools.
Well, yeah, they all say that, but then I ask them, could please describe what was better about the Soviet system, and you can hear the grasshoppers chirp because they don't fucking know. They don't know shit. It is this absolutely universally believed thing that the Soviet education system was better. Why? No idea. Not a clue, not even a guess. So it's another thing though where it can be very frustrating. I would say that the problems of the Russian education system now are very much rooted in the Soviet education system, which is very much a system where it's you sit there and wherever the teacher writes on the board, you copy down. There's some things about the Soviet Union that were good. They had a lot of stuff where they would teach people like how to build stuff, good like the education that you call we call it vocational in America, where like teaching someone how to make stuff out of wood or metal or all that stuff was apparently much better in the Soviet Union. So there's a little bit more like hands-on knowledge. Not everything was academic. But other than that, it really wasn't a good system. It was a system of whatever the teacher says, you repeat it. Okay. And that's probably a big part of the reason why the Soviet Union collapsed. So I don't see where this is coming from. And I've yet to really be able to get a good explanation from anyone in Russia structurally what was so great about it.
Well, maybe you did not speak with the right people because I would
it's been hundreds of people. I've had to have this conversation hundreds of times over and over again, and yet no one offers anything. So again, it's just a sort of urban myth. People like to believe it. So there you go.
Yeah, well, for example, exams, current modern schools, they have this what's they called, the exams when they only can have a multiple choice answers, right? Like it's an American school. In the past, in the Soviet schools, we did not have ever multiple choice answers on any test or exams. You had to really solve the problem, and teacher will give you actually a good point when they see your logical
well, yeah, like your college entrance exam was something where you'd have to like write and explain something. There was a bit more of that. But remember, all that stuff had to follow the party line. Because again, we, as someone who comes from America, I know how to, in written form, ass kiss. That's kind of what it was. And so I don't know. Really, if we're going to have any sort of system, there's a sort of methodology called classical education, and this is sort of the education that your royalty in Europe or the ancient Greeks, in theory, the important people in ancient Greece would have experienced. That has a lot more to do with teaching people how to think, speak, a lot about logic, a lot about philosophy and ideas. And I think that should be more of our orienteer. That's what they were teaching the children of the elite before the Russian Revolution. And that's probably a system that we need more of, where we actually teach people how to think. And yeah.
Yeah, well, the whole school stuff is a little bit different. And for me, I need to learn myself more what's happening currently in school, because all my knowledge about the Russian education based on my old Soviet Union school system I went through. And of course, we may be discussing a little bit different things. You trying to talk about writing and maybe history, what the teacher tells you, you write it down. I'm more talking about math, physics, and chemistry, where the Russians still winning all the Olympics, World Olympics. Just currently in December, there were 6 Russian kids who won again the World Math Olympic competition, and a mathematician.
Well, then that you raise also a good point. Is very often Russian students in modern times win a lot of international competitions, which means then the educational system must be really good.
Yep. So again,
because
maybe
again,
we're talking about different.
Hold on. Because this goes back to, in the Soviet Union, it was a good education system, and they've ruined it, and yet the results seem to be the same. So again, there you go. But also remember, this is one thing where it's fun. Trust me, as someone who plays American football in Russia, winning a competition is fun. I enjoy it. It's a good thing. We all like winning.